Okay, so this is chapter 5 of I Am Malala, the girl who stood up for education and was shot by the Taliban, by Malala Yousafzai, with Christina Lamb as her ghostwriter, writing for us. So the previous chapter was pretty much all about gender roles and sort of, not corruption necessarily, but the problems that Malala saw in her country. So this one's going to be a little bit more relatable, I hope, if you are a student. So right from the start, I haven't actually annotated this, but I'm going to. By the age of 7, I was used to being top of the class. So for this, we're going to draw kind of like a bad drawing of arm wrestling. So then we've got here, Malka and Noor joined our class. So when we did the end of year exams and Malika Noor came first, I was shocked. So basically she's, to use the colloquialism of the time, she's showing off how much of a sweat she is. She's kind of humble bragging how good she is at school, and then she gets a new student in her class. Her name means Queen of Light. She said she wanted to be Pakistan's first female army chief. So she's quite the ambitious young woman as well. And so her and Malala will go on to become friends, but at this point it's kind of describing the competition between the two. At first, stealing gave me a thrill, but that did not last. Soon it became a compulsion. I did not know how to stop. Amazing. So this is kind of her. This is kind of as crazy or as risky, non-nerdy as she gets in the story, but we'll see. Okay. She asked, "No," he replied, "almonds are very costly." So we've got here almonds as a symbol. So I'm going to do a bad drawing of an almond in each of these sections. Almonds are good. If you eat them with milk just before bed, it makes you brainy. I promised myself I'd never do such a thing again. So basically, she started stealing things, and from memory, basically, Dad's not happy. So can you sell them to me? No, almonds are very costly. Almonds as guilt. Okay. So this is sort of, that's what it symbolises. So thankfully I've written that there so I can remember what all this means. Basically, yeah, so she's been stealing things, and the kind of punishment is that he gives her almonds, and it's weird, but anyway, it makes sense, kind of, sort of. That he spends money on her, kind of, and that's his weird way of making her feel bad, and she does, it works. So again, it's kind of showing Dad in a really strong positive light, because he's sort of, without kind of directly addressing it, yelling at her or making her feel sad or whatever you might normally expect, he's kind of done it in a more positive way, and he's given her a lot of almonds as an expensive thing, and kind of shown her that, I guess, you work hard for the things that you get. And then, as she says here, since that day, I have never lied or stolen. So, when I came first in the Pashtun essay writing competition, so again, bad arm wrestling drawing, but she's competitive all the way through. He told me that Mahatma Gandhi said, "Freedom is not worth having if it does not include the freedom to make mistakes." So I've got here quote and maxim. So quite often, one of the features, the literary devices she uses, or the features of the story, is that she'll use quotes from famous people, from famous poems and so forth, to kind of break up those sort of things. So again, outside of his office, my father had a framed copy of a letter written by Abraham Lincoln, translated into Pashtun. So again, quote and maxim, you can tell she sort of lives her life by certain maxims, which is, I guess, a fancy way of saying like rules for living or something like that. And then it's a very beautiful letter full of good advice. Teach him, if you can, the wonder of books, but also give him quiet time to ponder the eternal mystery of birds in the sky, bees in the sun, and the flowers on a green hillside. Teach him it is far more honourable to fail than to cheat. So that's a really nice quote for us. And I'm going to keep going even though there's music in the background, as must be lunchtime or something. Alright, so I've got in the corner here, culture critical of Pashtun. So I won't read the whole lot to you, but this is, again, we're going to become critical of Pashtun culture. And yeah, the Pashtun Wali code, which is sort of the way that they lived their life and sort of solved their problems from memory. Yeah, the Pashtun took revenge after 20 years and another said it was taken too soon. So there's sort of, it's kind of an eye for an eye type of thing, where kind of if you do something wrong, then they will basically exact revenge upon you, which she sees as kind of barbaric in her description. So, in my country too, many politicians think nothing of stealing. They are rich and we are a poor country, yet they loot and loot. Most of them don't pay tax, but that's the least of it. They take out loans from state banks, but they don't pay them back. They get kickbacks on government contracts from friends or the company awards them to. Many of them own expensive flats in London. So, again, I'm not really sure exactly how she would know all these things, but presumably from her father, or she learnt them, don't know, hard to say. But this is kind of reflection, I guess, is almost at the policy level. Like you'd have to have quite high level knowledge of how politics works and finances and those sort of things. But anyway, that's all about corruption that I've highlighted within an inch of its life. At 61, I had been born into a sort of democracy, always accusing each other of corruption. So yeah, so again, she's critical of the political system, where they call it democracy, but I guess that they're just sort of switching over. And I'm just conscious that I've accidentally been using yellow instead of orange, which is the wrong colour, because I'm meant to be talking about corruption, which is orange, and I've been highlighting everything pink, which is activism, which is the exact opposite of what we're talking about, because it's not, you can't imagine that politicians being corrupt is an activist nature, because activism runs counter to the dominant ideology or the dominant thinking of the time. That's why you should be an activist, otherwise it's just being mainstream. So Sharif was accused of treason. So again, corruption, Sharif being one of the two leaders that she talked about just above, and then Musharraf being someone else. What have I got here? Musharraf was our fourth military leader. Like all dictators, he started by addressing the nation on TV, beginning, "My dear countrymen." I guess even that, she kind of sees patriotism as bad. Don't know why I wrote a B there. Okay. So 62, instead his cabinet was made up of the very same old faces. So again, corruption, 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 we get the idea. This kind of isn't necessarily the most exciting of chapters. I have 4 brothers, and if I do even the slightest thing wrong, they can stop me going to school. So gender roles, which is the wrong colour. I'll get the hang of this eventually, I promise. I have 4 brothers, and even if I do the slightest thing wrong, they can stop me going to school. Honesty is the best policy. So again, we've got another maxim. She's actually writing an essay on it, but basically that's important. We've got some more literary culture. She quoted beautiful poems by Alam Iqbal, our national poet. And it is far more honourable to fail than to cheat. So again, we've circled back to that. I'm pretty confident I just read that out not that long ago. And teaching how to lose gracefully. So these sort of quotes and maxims again, which is a feature of the writing that she uses a lot of, and also tells us a lot about what she believes about the world. So bottom of 64, I started writing my own speeches and changed the way I delivered them from my heart rather than from a sheet of paper. So we've got activism, and I've got here Bildungsroman, which is English word, but it's got a German origin, and it just means coming of age. So I'm going to write that there for us. But obviously it sounds more impressive than writing out coming of age. So this is showing how she's growing up. She's starting to see that there's, more about being in the world than merely doing the right thing. You sort of have to communicate with people and become an activist, as she learns from her father. Right, that's chapter 5. Next up, chapter 6, and then I'll probably take a break.